Butty Boy is the reluctant fell runner. Historical scene 4. JB and Camo were out running and passed an old farmhouse. "New jacket?" said JB.
"Yeah,"
said Camo, glancing at the sleeve of it.
"Cost me £125. Do you know how many hours that took me to earn? I worked hard for this."
"Yeah, not cheap, are they?" Outside the farmhouse, 400 years previously, the farmer's wife sat showing her 2 daughters how to make their family's own clothes. She had some wool wrapped around a stick. She teased a thread of it across and caught it on a hook on another stick. The second stick had a round lead spindle whorl on the bottom. Gently at first, she twisted the second stick. The wool was pulled across in a thick thread. When she was sure it was secure, she spun the stick faster and it pulled the thread of wool across. She repeated the process, making the thread of wool tighter and stronger. Her daughters smiled and she passed them a set of sticks each for them to learn. The 2 daughters and mother were wearing clothes the mother had made previously. She was known in the valley for the quality of clothes she made, and she made them with pride. Her daughters took it very seriously and wanted to be as good as she was. Episode 8. Leg 1 of the Norbert Norbert and Hell's Fell. Camo rang JB.
"I've been thinking,"
said Camo, excited. Here we go, thought JB.
"We need to get more miling, and we're already getting grief about being out at night from our partners. So how can we do it and still keep them sweet? We go early morning, then it's done and out of the way before they are up, and we can still be with our families at night."
"Oh, how early?" said JB.
6.
JB thought it over for a second or two. "That's not a bad idea."
"See you outside the hairdresser's tomorrow at 6 then."
"OK," said JB. Next morning, JB got up just before 6. He'd already set his running gear out the night before and got into it half asleep. He had a quick coffee and then he was out into the early morning bird song and the odd passing car. Camo ran up and stopped his watch.
"Ready then?"
"Yeah," said JB automatically, half asleep, and they ran off down the road. This became a regular thing every weekday morning. They got into the routine of doing a 5-mile loop. To make it more interesting, Camo decided to mix it up.
"Right, today we're not going to do the loop round. We're going to stay and do 5 ups of this hill."
On the way running down the hill, JB saw an open, empty crisp packet pointing towards him on the path.
"Hang on,"
said JB, nudging Camo.
"What?"
said Camo. JB thought, "I wonder if I can still do it." As he ran towards the crisp packet, he tried to time it perfectly to step on it and push forward with his foot.
"Yes, get in,"
said JB. "Still got it."
"God, I can remember doing that as a kid. Did you do that?" "In our hands, yeah,"
said Camo.
"But not with our feet. I've never seen that before."
"Oh," said JB. "I thought everyone did it." "It's a great feeling when you get the timing right and it works. Next time we see a crisp packet, why don't you try it?"
"I don't like banging noises since the army."
"Oh, right. Yeah. Sorry," said JB. On the next day, Camo set a different challenge.
"Right, we're not going to do that loop round today. We're going to stay on the hill doing them 5 ups again, but this time we have to do each one in under 4 minutes.
"OK, I'll give it a try," said JB doubtfully. That night, JB's throat was a little sore. He thought it was dried out from all the heavy breathing he had to do in the cold morning air. he decided to try putting his buff on and see if that would warm his breath. On the next morning, Camo set a different challenge. They'd done 3 ups of the little hill from the promenade. Camo and JB were stood at the bottom and they were facing back up the hill. Camo had his hands over the time starter of his watch and an evil look on his face. "How come we're waiting?" said JB suspiciously.
"Wait for it,"
said Camo, smiling an evil smile.
"OK, see that walker up there on the other side of the road?"
High up on the opposite side of the road, going uphill, was a man, probably walking to work early in the morning. "Yeah?" said JB.
"When I say go, you have to beat him up to the top."
JB looked at the walker, getting closer and closer to the top of the hill. For every second Camo waited, he would have to go faster. Camo was waiting, smiling.
"Hurry up,"
thought JB.
"You got to give me a chance." "Go,"
said Camo, pressing his watch and shooting out in front, and JB shot off behind. Camo was out in front, but JB just had his eyes on the unsuspecting walker. It was going to be touch and go to see who would reach the top first between them. JB was blowing hard through the buff, but it was doing its job and warming his breath. He just managed to beat the walker to the top.
"Well done,"
said Camo.
"You did it."
The walker looked across and frowned suspiciously. JB was bent over, sucking in deep breaths. He had that metallic taste in his mouth and a sickly feeling.
"That was good, that,"
said Camo.
"This Sunday morning, how do you fancy setting off early and doing one of the legs of the Norbert? If we take 2 cars, it will mean we can do the actual full leg and not have to double back halfway or loop round. I was thinking leg 1. We can park at Thrill Cold and then drive it back for whoever parked at the start at Candlewick."
"How early, how far, and how high?" said JB.
5 o'clock start, about 14 mile and 6,500 feet,
said Camo. "I should be okay for that," said JB, still getting his breath.
"You're gonna love it,"
said Camo, excited.
"It's got hell's felt at the final drop-off. Oh, I've seen people balk at that. I was bricking it the first time I did it, I tell you. I still get the collie wobbles now. And I've done it 4 times.
"Hell's fell," said JB.
"Wait till you see it. All you've got is one little ledge and one slip and whoosh! 3,000 feet all the way down to the bottom, splat!"
Camo did the actions of someone slipping, falling and going splat.
"Ha ha ha ha!"
"You're not selling this to me at all," said JB, with a look of fear on his face. "I love it on the fells, it's amazing. But I want to get home to my family afterwards 100%. Not 80%, not 99%, not 99.9%. 100%.
"You're gonna love it,"
said Camo, nudging him. He looked at his watch.
"Time for one more, and then work."
He said it as a question, but he did not wait for an answer and set off down the hill. JB set off after him, with a look of concern on his face. What have I got myself into this time? Hell's fell. Before leaving the house, JB went into his daughter's room and gave her a kiss and a look before setting off. He was waiting on the street outside the hairdresser's in his car. Camo pulled up alongside him, wound his window down. JB lowered his.
"Three Coats is joining us today,"
said Camo.
"We'll still take 2 cars though, just in case he doesn't show for some reason."
"OK," said JB. "What about Yorkshire?"
"No Yorkshire,"
said Camo.
"What?"
said JB.
3 Coats without Yorkshire? "I know, it'll be strange like." "Ha!"
laughed Camo.
"OK, follow me to Thrill Cold. We'll decide which car is staying there and which one we take to Candlewick. Don't suppose it matters really.
To be honest, I'm a bit apprehensive about that drop-off, said JB. What if I can't do it? Is there another way down?
Ha ha! There's no other way, but you'll be fine.
Camo's window rose up and he rolled down to the junction. JB followed behind. Perhaps he's exaggerating, thought JB. He sometimes does. I bloody hope so. They went on the motorway and then followed an air road. JB could see some very big mountains coming towards him. Eventually they pulled into an empty roadside car park surrounded by mist-topped mountains. They both got out of their cars to sort out their gear for the run.
We'll go in your car to Candlewick,
said Camo. OK, said JB. JB looked at the mountains. These were not the lovely green round-top hills of the cowgirls. These were gnarled and knobbly, jagged rock. They looked sore. They looked like they could make you sore. A car pulled into the car park.
Here's Three Coats now,
said Camo. Three Coats pulled up next to Camo's car. As soon as he parked up, he jumped out and rubbed his hands at the morning cold.
Is it okay if I leave my car here and get a lift to Candlewick?
He said.
I need to shoot off after.
OK,
said Camo.
Sound,
said Three Coats. OK, so looking after yourself then, are you? Thought JB. We don't need to get off quickly then. Camo and Three Coats sorted out their gear. JB did not have to, as they were going in his car.
I've got something new to try out today,
said Camo. He held up two long pieces of material and let them dangle. They were bright electric blue, with a grey brand name in large letters and a wide grey band at the top and a narrower one at the bottom.
What are they?
said JB.
You don't know what they are?
Scoffed Three Coats. No, I don't.
They're compression socks,
said Three Coats. Socks, said JB. There's no feet in them.
They're not socks as socks,
said Camo, smiling and happy at his new purchase.
They just call them that. No, they are to compress your calves. It helps with calf muscle recovery and with your circulation. It stops the build-up of lactic acid by putting the squeeze on your muscles.
JB looked doubtfully at them.
Anything for an extra boost,
he said. Camo took his shoes and socks off and put them on underneath, and then put his shoes and socks back on over the top. He looked a little ridiculous with his 3/4 length lycra black pants, and then the bright electric blue calves, and then his normal socks below.
Ready?
Said Camo.
Yes, ready,
said Three Coats. Three Coats came across smiling at his new purchase. A shiny new pair of walking poles.
New poles?
Said Camo.
Yes,
said Three Coats proudly.
Cheat sticks?
Said Camo.
cheat sticks,
Said Three Coats.
Yeah, cheat sticks,
Said Camo.
I thought you were traditional fell runners like you in Yorkshire. They call them cheat sticks because they didn't used to have them in the olden days. Using the power of your arms rather than just your legs. Cheat sticks.
I've never heard of that. Cheat sticks indeed.
Well, let's have a butcher's then,
Said Camo, holding his hand out for the cheat sticks. Three Coats smiled and handed them across.
How much?
Said Camo.
80 quid.
Camo nodded as if that was reasonable. I saw a pair for 15, said JB.
Not like these,
Said Three Coats.
light as a feather these, titanium, guaranteed unbreakable during normal use.
Camo went through the effort of putting his hands through the cord loops and walked a few paces around the car park with them.
Not like that.
Said Three Coats.
You put your hands through the loops the other way around. Then they will be tight and it locks in, So you're not just using your wrist, but the power of your whole arms.
Camo tried to figure it out.
Let me show you,
said Three Coats. He went over and showed him how to do it. Camo had a go. He stomped around the car park like he was hiking Everest.
Well, what do you know?
Said Camo.
You learn something new every day. I think I might get myself a pair.
It saves your legs doing all the work and gets your arms to help out. It also gives your core more of a workout,
said Three Coats.
Grand. Right, let's get going,
said Camo. He gave the poles back to Three Coats and held his hand out for him to shake.
Oh,
said Three Coats, shaking his hand.
Good luck on leg one today,
said Camo.
Yes, you too,
said Three Coats. Having been made to shake Camo's hand, Three Coats felt obliged to shake JB by the hand and went around his car to where he was. JB could see him coming and also the poles swinging wildly. He felt sure that Three Coats could see them too, but then in slow motion, but also too fast for him to react, Three Coats jabbed him with a flailing pole.
Oh, bloody hell,
said JB. That hurts.
Sorry,
said Three Coats, and he came forward with his hand outstretched again. This time JB was more wary and jumped backwards out of the way.
What are you doing?
said JB.
You nearly got me again.
Sorry,
said Three Coats.
I'm just getting used to them.
Three Coats tried for the third time to shake his hand, and the poles were still swinging wildly.
It's okay,
shouted JB. We've shaken hands before. We can leave it this time.
You sure?
said Three Coats. It's fine, said JB. Camo got in the passenger seat, which meant Three Coats had to get in the back. When he got in, his poles scraped across the car.
Mind the upholstery,
shouted JB.
Sorry,
said Three Coats. They set off for Candlewick, leaving Camo's and Three Coats' car behind.
So, no Yorkshire then,
said Camo.
No, he was going to come, but then he said he couldn't make it.
You going to be okay out by yourself? said JB, laughing.
Yes.
Then he tried to get back at him.
Are you going to be okay with doing a full leg? Is this the most you've done so far?
He'll be fine,
said Camo.
He's getting stronger on the hills now.
Oh,
said Three Coats, unsure. I'm okay with the height and the distance, but I'm not liking the sound of the Hell's Fell drop-off at the end. I'm not keen on heights.
I don't like falling,
said Three Coats.
It's mainly fine,
said Camo.
Just don't look down. Stick to the path and don't go left or right, or it's a 3,000 feet drop straight down and you'll die.
Brilliant, said JB.
It's okay,
said Camo.
It will be over quick. They'll have to identify you from your dental records because you'll have been turned into mush. But that's not your problem, because you'll be dead. It's just left to your family to suffer, that's all. Ha ha ha!
Camo laughed his booming laugh.
You're not helping,
said Three Coats, and he shivered involuntarily.
No, you'll be fine,
said Camo.
Like I say, just don't look down. There is one tricky little section though, and you'll have to have your wits about you then. You can't make a mistake there, or whoosh, you're off. I hope the clag is not down, otherwise it will be tricky. If you're doing the Norbert, you usually do Hell's Fell in the dark, with head torches. You need to do it about 3 or 4 times in the daylight so you get used to it. You don't want to be doing that for the first time, or you'll be like a horse that makes a refusal at a fence. You can't mess about, timing-wise, on the Norbert. You have to be able to get straight round it without any hesitation, timing-wise.
Hell indeed, thought JB. Why the hell did I come? Is there no way I can get out of this? You could just stay in the car for 4 or 5 hours. You'd never live it down, and maybe you'll never be able to come out with them again. But at least you'll still be alive.
Is there no other way we can go down without going off Hell's Fell?
Said Three Coats. Brilliant, thought JB.
That'd be brilliant. And it sounds like Three Coats is less keen to go down it than me. No, said Camo. You would end up having to go all the way back you came. Hell's Fell is near the finish. You come off it and it's down to your car and you're done. It would mean, basically, doing the route twice.
Said Three Coats, thinking.
You'll be fine anyway.
OK,
said Three Coats.
There is usually one person who falls and dies each year off Hell's Fell,
said Camo.
But that's usually some idiot going wrong.
You're joking, said JB.
No,
said Camo seriously.
What?
Said Three Coats.
Someone actually dies each year on the place we're going to today?
Yeah,
said Camo.
Like I said, it's usually someone who makes a mistake, or panics, or goes their own way. Or they could just be unlucky, really wet, shitty weather, and somewhere that they've been on previous that was okay in the dry isn't in the wet, and down they go. Or if there's been heavy rain and they stand on something that they thought was firm and it gives way. No, there's usually one that dies each year.
Bloody hell,
said Three Coats.
You'll be fine,
said Camo. Why am I doing this? Thought JB. They made it to the outskirts of the strange Cumbrian town surrounded by hills. It looked like a comfortable old English town with a mysterious sense of foreboding.
Here, turn here,
said Camo off a mini roundabout.
We can park down by the side of the rugby ground for free if we're lucky.
They were lucky and found a spot. JB reversed into it.
Right, better not forget anything,
said Camo. JB locked the car up and they set off at a trot. There were one or two people around. They did not get a second glance. It was a fell-running town. The buildings were higgledy-piggledy mix of old and new, some with thick, jagged, dark grey Cumbrian slate, some large sandstone blocks, others red brick, others were painted with white plaster fronts. 1 minute they were running on pristine new black tarmac, and then the next centuries-old, warped and worn cobbles. They crossed a road and seemed to be going into the shopping area. The narrow shopping street opened out into the town square, and Camo came to a stop and pointed around.
There it is,
he said in a reverent voice.
The boathouse. The start of the Norbert Norbert.
JB and Three Coats looked at the simple wooden door at the top of the steps that you had to touch at the start and the finish of the infamous round.
Are you not going to go up and touch it?
Said JB to Camo. Camo shivered.
Ugh. Not until the day,
he said.
Not until I do it for real.
I might,
said Three Coats, moving forward.
Don't!
Shouted Camo severely, stopping Three Coats in his tracks.
It could be bad luck.
Oh, OK.
Let's go,
said Camo, setting off immediately. They jogged down the market high street, JB feeling it all a bit strange, and then suddenly turned off into a dark alleyway between shops. Over the entrance to the alleyway was the date that it was built, 1527. Crikey, that's older than America, thought JB. Soon it became a little park. Then they were going on a rising path through a copse of trees. They had to stop running to go through a farm gate. Camo opened it and waited for them to go through before closing it behind.
Here we are then,
said Camo, pointing at the mountain that towered over the town. JB looked in front to see a well-trodden pathway, flattish at the start, and then rising up ever steeper and disappearing into the clag.
That's Cat's Paw. 3,054 feet of climb, straight up. Once you've done that, you'll have done about half of your climb for the day. In the Norbert, you'll have an hour and a half of budgeted time to do it. So let's see if we can do it. Let's go.
Let's put the sticks to the bricks,
said Three Coats. Camo and JB stopped and looked at him.
Hey,
said Three Coats.
That's a good one, isn't it?
How long have you been working on that one?
said Camo.
A couple of days, ever since I got these,
said Three Coats, shaking the poles in the air. They set off running, went through a farmer's gate, and then hit the steep hill and started the long trudge up. As soon as they hit the hill, Camo started to wince and walk delicately.
Are they a bit tight?
said JB.
Those compression socks? Just a bit. I'm sure they'll loosen up in a minute.
He walked on up the hill, trying to not show they were hurting. Eventually he stopped and adjusted them.
That's better,
he said, striding on. But after a few more steps, he started to hobble again.
Bloody things are like boa constrictors around your legs.
He stopped walking and pulled the socks down to his ankles and scratched hard at his calves aggressively and sighed a pleasant sigh.
Oh, that's better,
he said. He pulled them up and set off, striding hard again. But in a couple more steps he stopped.
Bastard evil things waste of money,
he said angrily. He ripped his shoes off and double sock. He angrily threw the compression sock over his shoulder onto the grass and then did the same with his other foot. He sat down on the grass, putting his shoes and socks back on. JB and Three Coats looked at each other. Three Coats pulled his lower lip in a grimace.
How much did they cost?
said Three Coats. JB winced at the timing of the question.
25 bastard wasted pounds,
said Camo angrily. The electric blue stood out harshly on the dull green heather, like a couple of dead fish. JB went to get them.
Leave the bastard things where they are,
said Camo angrily. Three Coats took a step back. It's all right, said JB. We'd better not litter. I'll put them in my rucksack so you won't see them again. It was worth a try, just didn't work out, that's all. Camo hesitated.
All right,
he said. He put his last shoe on roughly and then attacked the hill. JB stuffed the fish-like material into a side pocket of his rucksack and hurried after Camo. In a couple of minutes, they were completely forgotten. Three Coats trotted past JB to talk to Camo, his poles swinging wildly near JB's face.
Watch out with those bloody poles, will you?
said JB.
Sorry,
said Three Coats over his shoulder without looking back.
I'm going to have to keep away from him, or he's going to have my eye out, thought JB. He's not learning.
I've seen you've gone for the new cash guy, Camo,
said Three Coats.
Yeah,
said Camo enthusiastically.
I went for the 4-wheel drive.
Yeah, nice. I've been eyeing one up too,
said Three Coats.
Fuel injection.
No, I wouldn't go for the fuel injection.
Oh,
said Three Coats.
Yeah, too much drag on the...
That will make Camo happy, thought JB, talking about cars. I've no interest. Not purposefully, but JB's attention drifted away for a good few minutes, and then again, unintentionally, he tuned back in.
4-wheel drive, combustion chamber.
chrome exhausts.
And then the rest was just blah, 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 and his attention dropped out again. And then he realised Three Coats was talking to him. Sorry, what were you saying?
I said, what model of the Qashqai would you get?
Me? Oh, I wouldn't know. I'm not bothered about cars. As long as it gets me from A to B, I don't care. As long as it's cheap to buy and cheap to run. Three Coats looked disappointed.
What about impressing the ladies? You're the same as Yorkshire. He's not interested in cars. It's good to meet someone who is for a change,
he said to Camo.
What else is there that men talk to each other about, other than cars, football, and the ladies?
Said Camo.
Yorkshire really doesn't talk about girls, and he hates football too. I think he'd rather talk about cars than football, though,
said Three Coats. What do you talk about on the fells, then? Said JB. Three Coats thought.
The fells and fell running, I guess.
JB and Camo shrugged. About 2/3 of the way up, there was a little trickling stream, and Camo stopped.
Hang on a mo,
he said.
I've got something to try out, which could be a game changer.
Oh, here we go, thought JB. Camo took his rucksack off and started to unzip it.
What's that?
Said Three Coats, going over. JB walked closer too to have a look. Camo pulled out an empty water bottle and held it up with a knowing smile.
Imagine not having to carry any water with you and just using what you find on the way. Aren't our drinks one of the heaviest things we have to carry?
He took the top off the bottle and filled it up at the stream.
Are you sure that water's safe to drink?
Said JB.
Ah, there's the thing,
said Camo, smiling even wider. He went to his rucksack and pulled out a padded envelope that you get through the post. Three Coats stepped nearer to take a closer look.
What's that?
He said. Camo put his finger up for him to wait a moment. He pulled out a foil-covered blister packet. Water purification tablets, said JB. Camo nodded and pointed at him.
Correct,
he said.
Right, let's give these things a go.
He turned the packet over and read aloud the instructions.
2 tablets per litre, shake thoroughly and wait 20 minutes.
He popped 2 white tablets out of the foil and dropped them in, bloop, bloop, and screwed the top on. He gave the bottle a very vigorous shake.
Crikey, that'd kill a squirrel, that shake,
said JB.
Ha ha,
laughed Camo.
Right,
he said, looking at his watch.
20 minutes it is.
They walked on up the hill, every so often Camo checking his watch.
Right,
said Camo, looking at his watch and then stopping.
I've waited 25 minutes just to make sure.
JB and Three Coats stopped to see the verdict. Camo rubbed his hands together, excited.
Oh, ready for the game changer, lads.
He took the water bottle out of the pouch pocket for drinks on the front of his rucksack. He gave it a last gentle shake, paused, and then took a swig of the drink. There was a brief moment of disappointment that flashed across his face. He looked puzzled and then went for a bigger drink to try it again. He had the same puzzled expression of someone who was expecting sweet and got savoury. The puzzled expression of a dog who took a pause to figure out why he could not catch his tail, even though it was right there. In one of his sudden explosions of minor violence, the penny dropped and his expression completely changed.
It tastes of bleach.
He coughed and retched and shook his head. Then he stuck his tongue out as far as he could and scratched at the taste buds at the back of his throat with his nails. He made noises at the back of his throat, trying to clear his taste buds of the taste of bleach. Three Coats stared at him wide-eyed. JB laughed uncontrollably. Camo finally stopped. He unscrewed the top of the drinks bottle and slowly poured the water onto the ground. He shook the last drops out and put the empty drinks bottle into the pouch. He looked at the packet of water purification tablets with quiet disgust.
More bastard wasted money,
he said in a far-off voice, to himself and not them. In one motion, he dismissively threw the packet over his shoulder and set off up the hill. Three Coats was still wide-eyed and open-mouthed. He waited for Camo to get a little distance away and then warily set off after him. JB was still laughing with a wheezing voice at the back of his throat, like Muttley on the cartoon Wacky Races. He was more used to Camo than Three Coats was. He stepped across the grass and picked up the rubbish and put it in one of his pockets and set off up the hill after the pair of them, laughing to himself. In 5 minutes, it was as if it had not happened.
After we get to the top of here, we go down to a very boggy section,
said Camo.
There's a stream to cross. It's been raining heavily, so I hope the stream isn't flooded, or we could end up waist deep.
I hope not,
said Three Coats.
I can't swim.
You're joking,
said Camo.
No, never learned.
After going up 3,000 feet, they came down about 1,000 to a high boggy landscape. It looked like the set of a Sherlock Holmes, Hound of the Baskervilles film, with rough boggy moorland glimpsed in between foggy patches. At times there were dry sections, but at others there was no alternative but just to run through the bog and hope to get your feet up and out quickly with each step and not lose your shoes. Was the noise as your feet came out. Eventually they came through to the stream.
It's not too bad,
said Camo, going to the edge and searching for a place to cross. The stream bed was cut through the ground in a zigzag fashion. JB could see that at times the water would have overflown and would have been fast and strong. It looked like the landscape was dramatically changeable and the path of the stream not gently constant.
I can jump that,
said Three Coats, going up to the edge.
It's a bit far,
said JB.
Why don't you look for a place to cross?
I can make it,
said Three Coats, stepping backwards. Without a second look, he sprinted forwards and attacked it. JB and Camo watched him mid-flight and then land on 2 feet, just making it to the other bank at the limit of his range.
I made it,
he shouted. For a moment he remained balanced there, but while his feet had barely made it across, his body had not. It was leaning ever so slightly backwards in a semi-squat position. There was the first hint of him toppling backwards, and he started to windmill his arms rapidly, the poles going everywhere.
I'm going to make it,
he shouted. But it was too late, and they watched as he slowly but surely toppled backwards.
I've not made it,
he shouted just before hitting the water, bottom first. For a moment he was sat on his bottom in the stream, with the water halfway up his chest, and then, cat-like, he sprang out of the water and stood dripping on the opposite bank.
I'm okay, just a little bit wet,
he said. There was a couple of seconds of disbelieving silence at what they had witnessed, and then Camo and JB started howling with laughter. Three Coats did not look happy with them for laughing. Camo jumped across the stream and went to where Three Coats had landed. He bent down and mimicked Three Coats.
I've made it,
he shouted, flailing his arms. When he spun his arms, it made him wobble backwards, and for a moment it looked like he too was heading into the stream.
Oops,
he said, with a look of horror and surprise on his face. Then Three Coats and JB were laughing at Camo, and he joined in too.
I'm freezing,
said Three Coats.
Can we set off soon so I can get warm?
Soon they were on a long descent. It was warmer lower down, but the longer the descent meant the greater the climb coming up. On the next big climb they were mostly silent, as they were getting more tired. The ground changed from a grassy climb to stones, and then they crossed a scree field.
This could be the moon, or Mars,
said JB.
It does look like that, doesn't it?
said Camo. JB was trying to figure out how long they'd been going and how high, so he could figure out how much left there was to do.
We must have done about 6,000 feet, and we've been going for over 3 hours, which means we must be coming to the part where we start to come off, which means we must be coming to Hellfell Drop-Off. But where is it?
JB could feel his adrenaline spurt at the thought of it and what it could be.
Maybe he's exaggerating and it's not going to be as bad as he's making out, he thought.
They were coming down a grassy knoll. Camo first, then JB, and then Three Coats bringing up the rear. JB hurried to catch Camo up to ask about Hell's Fell.
Camo,
he said, coming up alongside him.
Yeah,
said Camo, not breaking stride as they were going swiftly downhill. As they ran side by side, Three Coats suddenly came sliding past them on his bottom, facing towards them. It was a long, smooth, comical slide, but then he toppled backwards over a grassy ledge and disappeared. Camo looked at JB with a shocked face.
What the?
The pair of them cautiously trotted over to the edge of the ledge, wondering what they were going to find.
I'm okay,
said Three Coats, beaming.
I somersaulted and landed on my feet.
He was stood up, facing towards them, brushing himself down.
At first it was hilarious, but before I could laugh, I thought he was a goner,
said Camo.
Me too,
said JB.
He's a bit accident-prone like,
said Camo. He is with those poles, said JB.
Him sliding like that gives me an idea,
said Camo. What? said JB.
Wait for winter, and you'll see, said Camo.
I'm fine,
said Three Coats.
I'm ready to carry on now.
Camo set off running, and the two of them fell in behind in single file. JB noticed that they were now on a fairly well-trodden pathway that rolls up slightly to a hilltop. He did not get his hopes up yet that it was a real top, and not a false top. As they came up on the rise of the path, JB was surprised to find it was a large, green, grass-covered top, with about 12 walkers on it. Even more surprising was that Camo had stopped at the top near the walkers and had taken out his drink bottle and was taking a relaxing drink. JB walked towards Camo and took his own drink out to enjoy the moment of respite. Now that they were at the top, the landscape seemed very different. They were on the top of a mountain range and could see out across valleys to other mountain ranges. It was like they were stood on the top of the back of a beach whale, and the other mountain ranges were other whales. The walkers had come up the whale from the lower tail end, whereas they had come up the steep side. JB caught a glance from a couple of the walkers nearby. It was a familiar mixed look that seemed to say, "Where on earth did you lot come from? You're mad running on these hills, and you're making me look bad for running when I'm only walking. I thought I was the hero." This really is a ridiculous hobby, thought JB. We've purposefully come up the hard way of the mountain, just because it's the hard way. These people are taking it nice and leisurely and taking in the views. It's a totally different hobby. Our hobby is suffering for the purpose of suffering, just so that you can suffer more in future. JB went close to Camo and took a swig of his drink. He had a strange sense of foreboding that clashed with the lovely safe green-looking hill. Camo tapped his foot on the floor. There was a round brass plaque concreted into the highest point of the hill that JB had not noticed. Engraved in it were arrows pointing all around the compass, with place names and distances to them. "That's a nice touch," said JB. "You don't normally get one of them. I bet that plaque takes a battering with the weather up here." "They'll probably replace it every so often," said Camo, taking a drink.
"Oh, that's nice,"
said Three Coats, coming and looking at it. He went and stood on the plaque and shouted,
"I'm on top of the world! Woo! Woo!"
He raised his arms up and down, and his poles were going wildly everywhere.
"Watch what you're doing with those bloody sticks," said JB. "You'll take my eye out."
Sorry, I keep forgetting,"
said Three Coats.
I'm not used to them yet."
"No, you're not top of the world,"
said Camo.
"Technically, that's Mount Everest. 9 times higher than this. You're not even on the tallest part of England. That's Scuffle Pickle. You're just on the tallest point of this fell range."
"Oh,"
said Three Coats, disappointed. Then he shouted again,
"I'm on the tallest part of this fell range."
A couple of walkers looked at him and smiled. "He's lethal with those sticks," thought JB. "I'm just going to have to keep my distance from him." JB moved away from Three Coats and his sticks. He had that strange feeling of foreboding again. What hill is this? He said to Camo.
This is Ben Dover, he said.
Ben Dover, said JB, feeling that foreboding getting stronger. Isn't that where Hell's Fell is? Where we're supposed to be coming off? JB looked down the spine of the mountain range, down the length of the beach whale. It looks lovely, round, green and safe, not the hair-raising drop-off that Camo had said.
It is,
said Camo. Where do we come off then? Said JB.
We go off there,
said Camo. He pointed at right angles to where JB was looking down the mountain range. JB turned and looked in that direction. There was about 15 feet of lovely green grass, and then nothing.
No,
said JB. The word came out of his mouth forcefully and involuntarily. There was a young fur-haired bearded walker nearby who heard the conversation, looked at JB and laughed.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah,
said Camo. JB looked again. 15 feet of grass. And then sky. Everything else was miles away in the distance. The invisible bottom that seemed to pull like a magnet when JB looked that way would be about 3,000 feet down below.
You're bloody joking,
said JB.
There's nothing there. You can't go that way. It's an abyss. We are,
said Camo, with a little nervous laugh. JB looked at Camo, looked at the laughing walker,
Wah, wah, wah.
and then looked at the void. His mind was whirling from one thing to another, and then his fears dissipated. You're joking, he said, feeling the beginnings of relief.
I'm not,
laughed Camo nervously.
Honestly, we're going off there.
Camo pointed at the empty void.
Where are we going off?
Said Three Coats, appearing over JB's shoulder.
He says we're going off there,
said JB, pointing.
Get knotted we are,
said Three Coats.
That's what I said,
said JB.
Honestly, we're going that way,
said Camo. Three Coats nervously took a step closer and stood on his tiptoes to try to look over the edge.
How?
He said.
There's nothing there.
There is when you get closer,
said Camo, walking towards the void.
It drops off sharply. That's why you can't see it from here.
From here?
Said Three Coats.
There's only 15 feet of land and then nothing. That's sky.
There is. You'll see. That's the way we're going.
No, said JB. I'm not going off there. No chance. The fair-haired, bearded walker had stopped walking to watch the fun. Every time JB said anything, he laughed.
He's trying to bleeding kill me,
JB said to him. Laughed the fell walker.
I'm serious,
said JB.
Look at it. Would you go off there?
Not a chance, said the fell walker.
Why are we even talking about it?
Said Three Coats, shrugging.
There isn't anything even there to walk on.
Camo started to walk towards the edge.
What are you doing?
Said JB, instinctively taking a step back.
Come and have a look and you'll see,
said Camo. Three Coats took a few steps forward and looked over the edge.
You expect me to go off that? No way.
JB felt his body making decisions for him. When he could see that they were 10 feet in front of him and safe, his body allowed his conscious mind to unlock and go a little closer. As he walked closer to that edge, he could see that it was not a sheer drop-off of 3,000 feet. The ground dropped away sharply into a bowl-shaped small plateau, and then an extremely narrow hill with a jagged, sharp-looking spine that was completely different to the lovely, round whale of a hill he was stood on. JB was calculating quickly and talking to himself. Okay, you might actually be able to do this. It's narrow, but if you don't look down, you should be okay.
Come on, you'll be all right,
said Camo, starting down towards the plateau.
I know what you're doing, you bastard,
thought JB.
You're trying to get us going. That's fine, but I want to know exactly what I'm doing.
JB went to the plateau and shouted at Camo. Hang on a fucking moment, will you? Camo stopped, surprised.
What?
He said defensively.
There's no other way down.
Just hang on a fucking moment, said JB. If you want me to go off here, I need to know what the plan is. I am not just setting off. Where are we going? Exactly. Camo sighed and then realised it was fair.
We're going off this spur here,
he said. No, exactly, said JB.
That's too steep,
said Three Coats.
Look at it. You can't go down that.
No, we are not going straight down the sides. We're following the curve of the spine over the top of it.
Camo used his hand to follow the shape of the top of the spine of the hill.
We're following that ridge line.
Oh,
said Three Coats.
I thought we were going down the side.
No,
laughed Camo, as if Three Coats was stupid.
You keep away from that. That's a sheer drop, that. 1 foot on that, and whoosh, you'd be on your way down. There would be no stopping until you hit the bottom.
Right, well,
said Three Coats defensively.
If you tell us what we're doing rather than just setting off, we'd know.
JB and Three Coats looked at Camo accusingly, so he stopped to explain.
We are sticking to this ridge line. You do not go left or right,
he said. JB was waiting for him to say, or you'll die, but now they really could. He was not saying it. Camo set off again immediately. Whoa, said JB. One more thing.
What now?
He said, stopping with a sigh. You do not go out of my sight, said JB, not caring now how Camo took it. I want to put my feet exactly where your feet have been. This is too fucking dangerous to be messing about, Camo. Three Coats stepped closer to JB.
Never out of sight,
he said, in agreement.
Never.
Camo went to turn again. I'm fucking serious, said JB. If you disappear, I'll scream at you until you come back, and then I'll beat the shit out of you. Camo smiled like he was in no doubt.
Scream,
said Three Coats, nodding.
OK, I'll make sure you're in sight. I've got to find the way myself.
Bloody hell. Camo set off. JB turned around to have one last look at where they had come off. There were 3 fell walkers watching them, and the fur-haired bearded one who had laughed before waved and started laughing again. JB waved back, shrugged his shoulders and set off after Camo. It was Camo first, with JB behind, watching his every move, and then Three Coats behind him, watching his every move in turn. JB's senses were completely heightened, and he began talking to himself through the ordeal. It doesn't actually look too bad when you get closer, he thought. If I just step where he is stepping and never let him out of my sight, I should be all right. If he's all right, I'll be all right. He followed Camo carefully down, ready to shout him back if he disappeared at any moment. He even risked glancing left and right now and then to understand better his position. There are sheer drops either side, but it's not like walking a plank over a sheer drop, he thought to himself. It's a bit wider than that, and there is ground beneath your feet. Camo stopped on a flat section and looked around. JB caught up to him. Everything all right? Do you know which way to go?
Yeah, it's not that,
said Camo.
There is an alternative route.
He pointed to the side where there was a steep field of scree, loose rocks, that looked on average about the size of your fist.
What, that scree?
Said JB.
Yeah, it's an alternative faster route called the parachute drop. You get on it and you ski down like. The rocks lock your feet in. I've been on a scree run on Scuffle Pickle. It's amazing. It gets you down really quickly and saves you time and energy. I've never done that section though, so I don't know if it goes all the way down or if you have to get off it part way down. It may be you have to get off halfway, otherwise it takes you off to your death like.
Well, said JB, steering himself away from possible death. It's perhaps best to do it the first time with someone else who's already done it and knows the route.
Yeah, I suppose,
said Camo, disappointed.
Tempting though.
Camo turned to carry on their present route down. JB looked at the near vertical field of loose, small rocks, known as a scree field, and pictured himself on it, hurtling to his death, unable to stop. Not really, he thought. He set off after Camo, and Three Coats set off after him in turn. It was still disconcerting to JB that you ran at 3,000 feet up. If there was a little flat section, no matter how small, it was run. No matter how high or how treacherous the next section would be, the respite was not taken. This is tricky, thought JB, but I have a vague hope of actually getting out of this alive now. In front was a raised, craggy rock formation, and for the first time they started to climb.
Hang on,
said JB, laughing. We're going back up again.
I know,
said Camo.
Feels wrong, doesn't it? But it's the route out. We've got the tricky bit at the top of here.
JB's heart started to race, and then it slowed. Is it really going to be tricky? He thought. He said this was death-defying, but it is doable, so maybe it's not going to be as bad as he's making out. Climbing upwards, it became a wider section, like a spur on the spine, and JB felt safer, even though you had to climb rocks and stretch, rather than just step. Near the top, Camo stood waiting for them. Good, thought JB. He's not letting us out of his sight at least. JB glanced back to make sure Three Coats was still there, and he was. He saw JB was checking on him.
I'm okay,
he said.
Right, this is it there,
said Camo, pointing. JB looked in horror. No fucking way.
We're committed now,
said Camo.
Get past this, and it won't be long before it widens out.
In front, the rock face to his right burred out to a vertical wall that could not be climbed. After that, there were great cracked slabs of stone that were almost flat, but not quite flat. They were weather-worn and tilted down. To the left was the void of a 3,000-foot drop. The spine of this fell formed a bowl with the main mountain range, and the wind came up into the bowl, hit the mountain, and came up into your face. JB imagined stepping onto the giant slabs of rock, having a 2-second slide, and then the drop. As he pictured it, his insides dropped, and he had the real feeling of falling.
You've got to be kidding, said JB. I can't do it. I'm not getting on those rocks. You'll slip off and go to your death.
He pointed at the slippy-looking slabs of rock that leaned in the direction taking you towards the void.
No, you don't go on there,
said Camo.
I agree. You'd slip and die. No, you go on that ledge there.
Camo pointed below the slabs of rocks that were leaning and encouraging you to your death. Half hidden underneath the outcrop was a little foot ledge.
You put your feet on that little ledge there,
said JB.
Yeah,
said Camo. JB's mind tried to disbelieve it, but he could see it was trodden on and devoid of anything growing, obviously by previous feet.
Watch me do it first,
said Camo.
I don't like it either. I'm going now, so I don't get stuck here.
Some fucking encouragement that is, thought JB. What's going to happen now? Will I be able to go forward? The void to his left seemed to pull like a magnet, and JB tried to tune it out. Camo set off, and JB's mind focused for him and watched the example. Camo leant his body weight over the slabs of rock. His hands searched shakily and nervously for any crevice. It was the first time JB had seen Camo nervous, and strangely it made him feel better. Camo shuffled his feet along the invisible ledge underneath. He used his long arms and legs to reach and get across quickly. JB wanted longer to study it, but Camo was done.
Phew,
said Camo. Fucking hell, thought JB. JB could see Camo scrambling across the rocks, still shaking. For a split second he wondered what was going to happen next, but just as before his legs had refused to move without knowing they were secure, this time they set him off walking, knowing it had to be done. He slowed and cleared his mind to make correct decisions. He had a quick glance back at Three Coats. He saw him following close, and then he committed himself to concentrate and talk himself through it. He was at the ledge where he would have to lean his body over, and he got his chest on it quickly. That's right, let it take your weight. He put his left hand forward and got a good grip. When he had his weight on his chest and a good grip with his left hand, he let his left foot go forward and find the ledge. When that was secure, he reached forward with his left hand, got a good grip. With all four limbs stable, he lifted the weight of his chest and moved it further over. When his weight was down, he brought his right foot over, planted that, and then moved his left foot further around. He repeated the process, slowly edging round. He took a glance left at the foreboding rocks. Actually, this process is working, and if you carry on, you'll be okay. Then he had a couple of unhelpful thoughts. Why are you taking so long? Camo was across by now. Yes, but he's got longer limbs, and he rushed it. Do you know that this exact point is the worst? Below your bottom, at this moment, is a 3,000-foot drop, and if you slip... He started to picture his backside jutting out over the precipitous drop, and then him slipping, and... Then his mind helped him and let the thought go gently. Before moving again, he pushed his weight even more forwards over the slab of rock, and he felt secure and knew he was going to make it. Just take it slowly and correctly, and it will be over when it's over, he told himself. He could hear Three Coats scrambling on the rocks behind him, and then, stab! Three Coats' walking stick poked him hard in the bum. JB froze position, his arms clinging hard to their hold on the rock. In a split second his mind replayed what had happened, only his hands didn't grip, and he flinched and started to fall.
You dickhead!
Shouted JB, without risking looking back.
You jabbed me in the arse with your stick!
What, sorry?
Said Three Coats. JB was clinging to the rock face with his bottom overhanging imminent death, waiting to be secure to start again. He heard Three Coats still coming on nearer, and unbelievably he jabbed him again. It was a proper push this time, not a stab, and JB felt his arms grab even tighter on the rocks. JB rotated his head. He could see Three Coats over eager to get across and get it done with.
You're doing it again, you fucking dickhead! Screamed JB. Are you trying to fucking kill me? Pissing wait for me to get across before you start.
Sorry,
he said automatically.
Hurry up, will you? I don't like this.
I don't like being jabbed up the arse with your walking stick.
Sorry, but please hurry up.
JB tried to wait and get his bearings, but unbelievably, Three Coats was coming towards him regardless. Again, JB's body acted for him and shuffled him across. He pulled himself up onto the slabs away from the edge. Now he was relatively safe. His arms and legs started to shake. He thought about standing up, but his legs would not let him, and he shuffled along on his bottom. He could hear 3 colts getting across quickly behind him. JB could see Camo further down, and he headed towards him. His mind struggled, comparing his present position, getting safer and safer, and flashed images of what might have been. He could feel the memory of being jabbed with the stick as if it was still happening, followed by a vision of him falling. I would be already dead now. But how long would it take before my family found out? What if it had been raining and those slabs were wet? What if that ledge would have given way? What if the clag would have been down? He turned around to see 3 colts scrambling over the rocks, his dreaded walking sticks flailing everywhere. 3 colts were shaking. JB felt sorry for him too. He was not going to say anything, but then couldn't help it. You nearly killed me then. You jabbed me in the arse with those bastard walking sticks right when I was over the drop. I thought I was a goner.
Sorry,
said 3 colts.
I couldn't wait. I really didn't like that.
Me neither, said JB. Why do you have those sticks out anyway? Why didn't you fold them up and put them away?
I thought they'd help, he said, but obviously not. I didn't want to stop to put them away because I didn't want to get left behind up there. Shit, that was scary, that.
Why not put them away now?
No, I'll be all right now,
he said. OK, but if they jab me again, I swear I'm going to ram the fucking things up your arse.
OK, that's fair,
he said. It was just less than 3,000 feet up, and there was a narrow track. Camo saw them catching up, turned and started to run. JB hurried to catch him up. When he was in earshot, he told him about the incident. You know, on the worst bit, when your arse is overhanging the 3,000-foot drop?
Yeah,
said Camo. 3 colts jabbed me in the arse with his walking stick.
No,
said Camo. I swear to God he did, said JB.
Why did he do that?
said Camo. I think he was that nervous to get across, he just set off.
Right,
said Camo. JB wondered if Camo did not believe him, so he said it again. I swear it's true, he said. He jabbed me, not once, but twice. I had visions of me jumping in surprise and disappearing down the mountain.
No way. Here,
he said.
He's getting behind a bit. Let's wait for him to catch up.
JB was surprised Camo was not making more of it. They waited for 3 colts to catch him up.
I really didn't like that,
said 3 colts. Neither did I, said JB. Especially you jabbing me in the arse at the crucial point.
Sorry about that. I didn't mean it. I must have been concentrating so hard. I didn't even know I'd done it until you said.
You did it twice, said JB.
Did I really? Sorry,
said 3 colts. JB looked at Camo and 3 colts. They were too preoccupied with their own thoughts to be worrying about what had happened to him.
It gets a bit easier now,
said Camo.
But you still have to watch out, of course. It gets wider and wider the lower we go.
Thank God for that,
said 3 colts, starting to smile.
What an experience, eh? Something to tell the wife and kids about.
Not a chance I'm telling my wife and family about that, said JB.
No,
said 3 colts. No, they'll never let me out again, said JB. Or if they did, they'd be worrying every minute I might not get back. I'm not telling them about that. I'm trying to forget it myself. Camo and 3 colts laughed.
Ho ho!
They gradually made their way down towards the car. Strangely, after their near-death experience, they began complaining about the relatively normal pain of running downhill. Eventually they made it to the car park, where Camo's and 3 colts' cars were waiting for them. Camo opened his car and JB got his hold all out with his change of clothes and started to strip in the car park.
Thanks for that route, Camo,
said 3 colts, coming over.
I'm glad I've done it.
No problem,
said Camo proudly.
Caw, what an achievement we've done, boys, said Three Quarts. Going down that ridge line. Phew, and that death corner. I don't mind saying, I shit myself then.
I know, I was there, said JB.
Yeah, sorry about the sticks. I was petrified, I didn't know I'd done it. And you say I did it twice?
Yeah. Three Quarts shook his head.
Incredible. What an experience the way, lads. What a thrill.
Sort of, said JB. I'm kind of glad I did it and all that, but it's silly really what we did.
What do you mean?
Said Camo.
Yeah, what do you mean?
Said Three Quarts. Well, we've risked our lives for no particular reason. We're not out hunting, are we? Trying to bring home a deer to our starving families, are we? We're not risking our lives to bring back diamonds and gold. We've just done it for what? Fun? One of us could be dead now, and the other two having to explain that to our families.
Yeah, I suppose,
said Three Quarts. He looked at Camo.
Was there no other route out?
Well, yes, you could go down Bishop's Fell,
he said, pointing to the right of Hell's Fell, the one they had come down. JB looked across at the mountain, the nasty jagged ridge of Hell's Fell that they had come down, and then another outcrop to its right. It was fatter and much smoother.
You what?
Said Three Quarts, aghast.
Why didn't we go down that one?
It takes longer,
said Camo.
How much longer?
Said Three Quarts.
About 20 minutes.
Only 20 minutes to avoid the risk of imminent death? We should have done that one, said JB.
But that wouldn't get you ready for the Norbert, would it?
Said Camo.
20 minutes could be crucial to doing it under 24 hours. 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there. Adds up. There are some fast runners who can catch up time who don't like heights that go down there, but we need those 20 minutes, so we'd have to do that Elsfell route.
JB and Three Quarts stared at each other with open mouths.
Right,
said Three Quarts.
I'd better be off, lads. See you at the inaugural club meeting.
He walked over to Camo and shook his hand.
Yeah, see ya,
said Camo. Three Quarts came towards JB to shake his hand, and before he got there his stick swung around at JB. The first one just missed him as he jumped out of the way, but then the second one jabbed him again.
Not again,
said JB.
Sorry,
said Three Quarts.
I'm sure I'll get better at them.
Why do you always stab me?
Said JB.
Why not Camo?
I don't know,
said Three Quarts.
Maybe it's because he's so big you can't miss him.
I bloody wish you'd miss me,
said JB.
Ha ha,
Camo laughed. Three Quarts came to shake hands and say sorry, and nearly stabbed JB again.
Keep away, shouted JB. You don't know how painful they are.
Titanium,
said Three Quarts, looking at the point on the bottom.
That reminds me, said JB. It's something I read about, and then I observed in the martial arts.
What's that?
Said Three Quarts. Scientists did this experiment. They got one person to hit another person, and then the other person was supposed to hit them back just as hard as they'd been hit. When they did it, both people were convinced the other person had cheated and hit them harder than they had, and they got angry about it. If they were allowed to hit again, then they'd go harder and harder and it would escalate. I'd see that in the martial arts. When you hit someone, you don't feel anything, while of course they feel pain. Someone else's pain doesn't register with you, while of course your own pain registers really strongly. It causes trust problems.
I don't get it,
said Three Quarts. Pass me one of those poles a second, said JB. Three Quarts passed him a pole and looked puzzled. JB jabbed him with it.
Oh, what did you do that for?
Said Three Quarts.
That hurt.
You see, said JB. You stabbed me with a pole and it didn't register with you, yet I feel it. That's unfair. I stab you with a pole and now it registers with you, and you feel it's unfair.
Ha 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 ha!
Camo howled. Mine was an accident though, protested Three Coats. And yet the pain is the same, said JB. Still, I didn't do it on purpose, he said, rubbing the pain away and angry about it. At least 5 times, said JB. 5 times, and right up there on that ledge, twice. JB looked at the pole and then at Three Coats. You wouldn't, said Three Coats. JB lifted his knee and hit the pole across his thigh. He held it up, and there was now a bend in the middle. Ah! Said Three Coats. You see, said JB, I bend the pole and I feel nothing, while to you it causes pain. JB handed him the pole, and Three Coats looked at the kink in it, half angry, half disbelieving it had happened. Camo stopped himself laughing with difficulty. You can take it back, remember, said JB. It's supposed to be indestructible. In normal use, said Three Coats sadly.
They won't know,
said Camo. Do you think? Said Three Coats.
Worth a try,
said Camo.
They have stuff returned all the time.
I'll try that then. If I do get a replacement, I'm keeping them far away from you, he said, pointing angrily at JB. Now you get it, said JB. That's the whole idea. Three Coats went sorrowfully to his car, glancing at the bent pole. He drove off quickly, still in his clothes, while Camo and JB were getting changed.
Do you not think you were a bit harsh?
Said Camo. No, said JB. Could have killed me up there then, stabbing me just as I was crossing over at the worst point. Twice.
Ah, well,
said Camo.
You would have been done with it then.
What? Said JB.
Life,
said Camo.
But no, you've still got to go to work, pay the mortgage, pay the bills. One consolation, if you would have croaked it, is that all your worries would have been over, wouldn't they? But no, here you are, and they are still there.
He looked wistfully.
One day, it will all be over.
Bloody hell, Camo, that's a bit morbid, said JB.
I've still got loads of stuff I want to do. Places to go, people to see, things to do, hopefully. Well, none of us knows how long we've got, said Camo. To be honest, I wouldn't mind too much. I've done most of my life, done what I've wanted to do. I've had my wife and kids. It's their time now. If I go, I can say I've had a pretty good life.
JB looked surprised.
Screw that, he said. I'm going nowhere. I've got loads I still want to do. I always will. No one's getting me off to my grave easy. I'm still going forward, always forward. There's always more to do.
Camo shrugged.
Good for you, I guess.
Too right, said JB. I'm not going easy, me. I'll be kicking and screaming when they come for me.
Ha ha!